Good evening, everyone. This is me at the end of my previous Grand Traverse in 2010. I always wanted to come back and do it again, but there were a lot of learning points. I didn't want to suffer for one, and I actually wanted to have a little bit more fun. But having done it at speed, I actually had a few learning points that at least I could take back home with me. The first is that the Drakensberg is actually an enormous place. It's huge. It just goes on and on and on. And to be out there alone is, well, it's mind-blowing. That's the nice way of putting it. And there's no people out there. I've done, I think, 8 attempts at a Grand Traverse now, and I've probably only seen 10 people out there. It's like, all you see is animals. And yes, it's nice to run past horses and sheep and stuff, but you'd like to speak to someone sometimes. You get a lot of locals who actually look after their animals, but they speak Sotho and I speak English, so communication is kind of limited to, well, if you take a photo of me, I can, exchange for sweets kind of thing. All very well, but not very intellectual, and I've never actually been able to explain to the guys where I'm coming from and where I'm going to. The Drakensberg has, well, just an endless succession of valleys and hills. It's mostly runnable, but it's hard work. You just keep going and going and going. So I kind of realized one of the first things to actually do when I'm training is I just need to get out there and see the place. I went out there and did lots and lots of hikes, spent the night out in caves, looked at the views, and just tried to enjoy it. You're not actually going to finish if you're not having fun. I even went out and actually did it as a good old 12-day traverse, put on a 27-kilogram backpack and hike for days and days and days. Now, that might sound boring to someone who's supposedly super fit, so I made up for it a bit and decided I'm going to bag a Kulu. Now, Kulu is just a 3,000-meter peak in the Drakensberg. So I just went up every single one of them that I could find because, well, I'm there. It's free hill training. And later on, I'm going to have to do 8,000 meters of vertical gain and descent, so I'll use the most. So I just bagged Kulu after Kulu after Kulu and even more Kulus. The friends I was with, Jonathan especially, he believes you have to actually take a photo on the summit. So I have so many photos that I actually don't know what summit this is. It's got a cairn, it's obviously we're standing on top of it, so it must be a summit. And then the other thing is, what's the fastest route? Like, I literally went on every single one of those tracks you see over there. I went this way, that way, all over the place, tried finding paths where sometimes there aren't any. I went up and down the valleys, just looking for everything. And what kept me going the whole time was how beautiful the place is. Obviously, in summer, it's a lot greener, and there's water in the rivers, but you get the sounds of the waterfalls, you get birds, and that kind of thing it kept me going. What's actually ironic in all of that is in all that time, I never actually carried an iPod once. I was only listening to the actual sounds of nature. I don't listen or smell the flowers, but my girlfriend does. So every now and again, you actually have to do these things and stop and smell the flowers. So I did that even. Every now and again, you actually get that magical winter wonderland like this. This was actually on a climbing trip, not a running trip. But it's pretty special to be out there when there's that much snow the day afterwards. And what was amazing is there was actually these little trail of a little buck that had been caught up high up on the cliffs, caught in a storm, and it had to walk out in the night to get out. One of the things that I did also to try and prepare me mentally was to do a lot of rock climbing. It is an interest of mine, and in the Drakensberg you get a huge amount of exposure. You get a lot of fresh air below you, and it's a completely different sensation to climbing anywhere else in the country. You've got so much more air below you. It all gets made up, of course, by the fact that in the Drakensberg, the quality of the rock is not as good as everywhere else. There's a joke that says, What do you do if you find a good hold in the berg? Well, you put it back. Actually, these people have completely missed the point. In the berg, the good hold is a grass tuft. You spend your whole time actually dancing around on these little grass tufts, crossing little ledges that have 2 grass tufts in the middle of a blank cliff. And by the time you've actually gone through all of that, a solo GT is actually nothing. You know, it's nice and simple. That's nice and safe. It's these grass tufts you worry about. It's just, that's how you climb in the berg. You pull on the grass tufts, you stand on the grass tufts, and occasionally actually you touch the rock, but not very often. It's not called rock climbing, it's grass climbing. So, and in all that time, one of the other most important lessons was you can't always win. These are big mountains. Sometimes they actually win. Sometimes you have to actually just back off, abseil, and go home and drink hot chocolate, have a pizza, and all those good things. I don't have one of those silly sin bins like the previous guys. The ironic thing about the whole GT is that in my previous attempt, I'd spent the whole time trying to maximize daylight. You can run faster in the day than you can at night. And then, strangely enough, it just occurred to me that the weather is more stable in July. So I actually did it at a time where there was 13 hours of darkness instead of 13 hours of daylight. And after all of that, I was actually fine and actually managed quite well. So somehow that preparation did actually work.